Lights of Motiram. Yes, you've heard about this game. This game is the Horizon copy. So let's get that out of the way. This is a copy of Horizon, and I'm going to show you that it's pretty much, and sometimes, in some places, a one-to-one copy. In places that you wouldn't expect. So here's a question. Is this a Sony game in hiding? Now, the answer to that is probably a no. And I know some of you are already thinking, no, it's made by Tencent. We're gonna get to that. But that is the question. Is this a Sony game in hiding? Now, if you wishlist this game on Steam, you wouldn't know that Tencent has anything to do with this game because the developer for the game is Polaris Quest. And the publisher is also listed as Polaris Quest. So the question is, who is Polaris Quest? Well, they just kind of popped up out of nowhere. We've never heard of them before. They just kind of appeared. But if you go on their homepage and you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see at the very bottom that it says that Polaris Quest is a Tencent-owned studio. So, as I understand it, Polaris Quest is the developers and Tencent is the publisher of this game. Here's the problem though. This game looks so much like Horizon that I am extremely surprised that Sony is not going to sue them for this. Yes, I almost said Nintendo. That's because Nintendo is dealing with another company, Pocket Pair, who made another copy of their game. So this idea of just copying other people's ideas, it might start to become a problem. But here's the thing though, Tencent doesn't do this. Tencent doesn't copy other people's work. That's not what they do. Now, I'm sure you all know this, but if you don't, Tencent is a Chinese company that owns a lot of video game IPs. They're mostly known for making really good quality live service type games, but then charge you a bunch through microtransaction. But again, Tencent doesn't copy other people's homeworks. That's not their MO. So why now copy somebody else's work? And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Well, it looks like it, but it doesn't really look like it. No. This is, if you thought Power World just kind of resembled Pokemon, but not really it's pretty clear that this particular game is a carbon copy of Horizon. So here's a question. What if this is an Horizon game? Okay, most likely not, but let's just think about it for a second. We know that Sony is working on an Horizon MMO. We know that because we've heard that through the grapevines, right? We also know that Sony Studios is not the people working on that game. They gave it to somebody else. We think it's Nexon they gave it to. So we know that. We also know that they've been working on that for a while. So the announcement for that game should be coming out pretty soon. We also know that. Again, what if this is that game? Now you're thinking, no, this is a Tencent owned game. This is not that game. Okay, you're most likely correct, but we do need to also acknowledge that Tencent and Sony do own shares in some pretty big companies. As a matter of fact, there is a video that I'm working on right now about Sony buying Karakawa, and Tencent has a lot to play with that. So it is possible that Sony and Tencent are in some kind of partnership, although it is unlikely, but it is still possible. Because again, I go back to this. If this is not a Sony IP, then I think Sony should definitely file a lawsuit about this. Now, there is a few issues with that. That even if this is a full copy of Horizon, that Sony may not be able to do anything about it because Tencent is a Chinese company and Sony is a Japanese company. But again, it's still weird. Tencent doesn't do this. They don't just copy people's work. That's not their MO. So what is the other possibility here? So let's first talk about the possibility that this is an Horizon game. Because if this is an Horizon game, it really works. It fits really well. First of all, when the trailer for this game first opens up, they give you a date and they tell you that this is experiment 4. Now, Matrix, for example. Let's go to Matrix. Remember in the Matrix, when they finally got to the architect, I believe it was the architect, and the architect told them that this is actually like the 4th or 5th iteration of this idea. We keep working with this idea until we perfected it. And we've discovered that the secret ingredient is love. And that's what makes Neo different, because they programmed love into the system. Okay, the idea then being though that we've tried this before and every time it fails, we burn it down and we try it again. This is the same idea that we've tried it before and then we keep burning it down and then till we get the right thing. And now we've arrived at experiment number 4. Okay, question. Could this be an Horizon IP? Because if it is, it actually fits, because that is the idea of Horizon, that we keep trying until we get it right. When you play the game in depth, you kind of find out that they weren't really sure about this whole thing. So everyone kind of had different plans for making this thing work, and the idea was, we're just gonna keep trying till we get the right thing. And again, so it fits perfectly well within that world. But as we've already said, this is a Tencent game, not a Sony game. So is Sony going to file a lawsuit about this? There's a chance that even if they want to, they can't, because the rules of infringement might be different in China than it is in Japan, and Sony just may not have enough power to push against something like that. But if that's the case, then I think this is what's happening. This is not exactly a Horizon-like game. This is actually a Monster Hunter game using the Horizon DNA, including the grass. Like, look at the grass. It is the same grass that Horizon uses. So they just figured, let's create a Monster Hunter competitor, but use giant machines. Okay, cool. Sony might not go after that. But I feel like if this is attached to Sony in any way, it's actually going to help the IP out. So, is Sony still working on the Horizon MMO, or did that get canceled because Sony saw this game and they said, okay, this is going to be on PlayStation. We don't have to make a competitor to this game. If that's what's happening, cool. But there's a second possibility. All of the combat they showed us were melee combat. Okay, if this is the Horizon game, they might have just teased us with a melee aspect with the other aspects to come. Now, based on the way this game looks, I'm not sure that's the case, because this game doesn't look or feel as good as Horizon. But again, MMOs are different from whatever Guerrilla created. So if this is the case, we might see a advancement of this combat system, and we might start to see arrows. Otherwise, I'm gonna say there's something really weird happening here. It's possible that this is the Horizon game, and if it's not, I don't know why Sony is not filing a lawsuit about this, because yes, this game does copy Horizon to a T. Have a wonderful day.